Asaba Harumasa is finally coming to Zenless Zone 0 in 1.4, and he is absolutely free for everybody! That's right, as long as you log in during the 1.4 patch, you'll be given a free copy of Harumasa. In this video today, we're going to answer the important question, should you pull more of Harumasa and his W engine? To answer this, we'll have a brief overview of his kit, his team synergies, and his value as a meta unit, even from a free-to-play standpoint. Sit back, relax, and grab yourself a delicious chicken sandwich, and let's do this. As a reminder, all of the content in this video is from the creator beta server and may be subject to change, although pretty minor. Thank you to Hoyoverse for granting early access, and let's dive in. Asaba Harumasa is our upcoming S-rank electric attack unit hailing from Section 6. He features a very fluid, fun gameplay style between his two weapons, a bow and a blade. His kit and core gameplay loop focus on two important concepts. The first is his main resource that sets up traps on the field called Electro Quivers. Based on this little blurb from his basic attack, Haoto no Ya, there can be up to 6 of these quivers present at any time on the field. There are 3 important ways to get these Electro Quivers onto the field. First, the 5th hit of basic attack Cloud Piercer will generate 2 Electro Quivers, and both EX Special Attack and Chain Attack will grant 6 quivers each. Another important note is that if there are no Electric Quivers on the field, when a squad member applies Attribute Anomaly to an enemy, you will automatically generate 6 quivers. As you'll see from the Team Synergy section, Harumasa has great synergy with anomaly units, and this is one of the reasons why. If these are present when you use Falling Feather, they will activate and fire Haoto no Ya at the enemies, dealing electric damage. This leads to a debuff called Electro Prison, which can stack up to 8 times, last 10 seconds, with repeated triggers resetting the duration. These stacks of Electro Prison lead us to our second important concept of X marking. In order to achieve this, you're going to have to use basic attack Falling Feather. After the 5th hit of his basic attack, a special attack, an EX special, or a chain attack, hold down the special button to immediately shoot Falling Feather. It's very important to make sure to hold this button, otherwise you'll go into the special attack, which really shouldn't get that much use. You can also activate Falling Feather at any time by simply just holding down the basic attack button and going into this over-the-shoulder attack mode. Remember that this Falling Feather is very important, as it's what's going to cause those Electro Quivers to turn into Electro Prison. Simply put, get those quivers on the ground and use Falling Feather to start X-marking the enemy. You can easily see when you have the X mark on an opponent with this little effect. X-marked enemies will cause his dash attack to be upgraded to Hiten no Suru Slash, also putting Harumasa into the awakened state. This upgraded dash attack is where most of Electro Boy's damage is going to come from. By pressing basic attack button during a dodge, you will activate this move and rush forward to the closest X-marked enemy and execute a powerful slash, dealing electric damage. This will consume 2 stacks of Electro Prison, which was placed on the enemy from those quivers. What's really cool about this dash attack is for every 2 stacks of Electro Prison, you can keep pressing the basic attack button to keep executing these strong slashes. This illustrates the strong core loop that Harumasa offers in his gameplay. Use that 5th hit of basic attack, EX Special, Chain Attack, and Attribute Anomaly to generate Electro Quivers, and then use Fallen Feather to X-mark the enemy in the Electro Prison. After this, just simply use the enhanced dash attack for maximum damage. Let's also briefly describe Harumasa's core passives. Core passive Daybreak increases the crit rate of dash attack Hiten no Suru Slash by 25%. Additionally, when this triggers a critical hit, you'll gain a stack of Gleaming Edge, up to a maximum of 3 stacks per use, and a total of 6 times, with repeated triggers resetting the duration. Each stack of Gleaming Edge, which is shown here under the character picture, will increase the dash attack crit damage by 12%, for a maximum of 72%. In other words, just think of this core passive as a significant damage increase for your enhanced dash attack. Additional ability Overclock will trigger when a stun or anomaly character is in the same squad. This will do 2 things. Harumasa's damage will increase by 40% when hitting stunned enemies or if they're under attribute anomaly. Secondly, when using Falling Feather with either of these conditions, it will apply 2 stacks of Electro Prison. From this additional ability, we can already see some of the team synergy aspects that we'll talk about right now. Since Harumasa is the lead DPS in any squad, we want to build our teams around him. He has a fair amount of teams that he can thrive in, and each of them was able to do Shiyu defense fairly quickly. My personal favorite teams for Harumasa were featuring stun units, such as Harumasa Qingyi Rina or Harumasa Caesar Qingyi. both of these teams really excelled at cranking out a lot of days. In the case of Harumasa, Caesar, and Qingyi, not only do you get the stun damage multiplier both from Harumasa's passive and Qingyi's passive, you also get significant buffs and a giant shield from Caesar. If you sub in Rina for Caesar, you'll get a little bit more damage at the cost of survivability. Let's now shift to the anomaly attribute portion of his core passive. Because of the 40% damage increase and applying 2 stacks of Electro Prison when hitting an enemy under attribute anomaly, it really doesn't matter what attribute you want to focus on. You'll also be surprised to know that I actually really enjoyed the Burn Synergy team if you have Bernice. Harumasa, Bernice, and Lucy in that order. Also remember that Bernice really likes that off-field anomaly playstyle, and this will contribute to having more Harumasa damage uptime. Another important note is that when there aren't any Electro Quivers on the field when you trigger Attribute Anomaly, you'll gain 6 of them right away. This is really compounded by Bernice's high amount of burn that she provides, so you can have a good uptime on Electro Prison and X-Marking on enemies. This will also work for any assault-based teams such as Harumasa, Piper, and Lucy, or if you want to throw Jane in the mix as well. His best anomaly team will be the Electroshock Therapy though, featuring Harumasa, Grace, and Rina. Grace Howard does a very good job of quickly causing shock, and Rina not only provides pen buffs, but extends this shock duration. In other words, if you focus on an anomaly team for Harumasa, you'll have very good uptime on Electro Prison and be able to crank out a lot of damage with X-marked enemies going into the dash attack. But if you guys have seen my Team Synergy sections before, you know I like to leave you with a free-to-play team. I'm actually genuinely surprised that the Cunning Hairs worked very well with Harumasa. Specifically the team of Harumasa, Anbi Damara, and Nicole Damara. In fact, Nicole is just a general support you can use with Harumasa because you don't really need her additional ability as it just boosts ether damage. This team's driving force is the amount of stun that you can get out of Anbi, and it was still able to clear pretty quickly around the 2.5 minute mark. It's also worth noting that this clip we are watching right now did not have extra copies of either of the A rank units, so the team can get significantly better. As a general idea for his Team Synergies, just make sure to focus on the uptime of Electro Quivers in the Anomaly team, or the powerful damage boosts granted by a lot of the stun teams. Now that we know a general overview of Electro Lad's gameplay, as well as his Team Synergies, we can finally answer the question, should you pull Harumasa? Or at least extra copies of him, since he's a free unit after all. Since everybody gets a copy of him, part of his value will come from the W engine, which is a lot more accessible now. Harumasa's signature W engine will be his best in slot, the Zanshin Herb Case. Immediately, Harumasa's crit rate increases by 10%. His dash attack electric damage will also go up by 40%. Lastly, when any squad member applies Attribute Anomaly or stuns an enemy, Harumasa's crit rate increases by another 10%. This in itself has a pretty good uptime, especially if you're focused on those anomaly teams. In other words, Harumasa gets a 25% crit rate increase from this W engine, as well as a 40% electric damage increase to his strongest move, his enhanced dash attack. Ultimately, this is a very valuable W engine, but it's also kind of a double-edged sword. Harumasa is one of our DPS that strangely has a good amount of W engines to use. While his best stats are both crit rate and crit damage, you'll still have plenty good clear times with W engines like Brimstone, Cannon Rotor, Drill Rig Red Axis, Gilded Blossom, etc. What W engine is the best for you will depend on your team composition for Harumasa, and we'll go into much more detail on that in the full build guide coming out very soon. But by having his signature W engine, Shiyu defense clear times were significantly reduced. However, we will compare this to his Mindscapes to see which has more value for him. Mindscape 1 is called High Spirit. Ultimately, this Mindscape gives Harumasa the potential to deal a lot more damage. By having a higher stack limit of Electro Prison, you can spend a lot more time in his enhanced dash attack. However, if it's between Mindscape 1 and his W engine, I still gotta give the slight edge to the Zanshin Herb Case. The damage output as well as the buffs from his signature W engine are still more valuable than his Mindscape 1 in my opinion. But that's enough about those, let's talk about the meta state of the game as well. First, don't forget that the decibel change is coming in 1.4 as well, where everybody gets to use their ultimate and has independent decibel ratings. This This is a very good quality of life change and actually buffs Harumasa in some ways. Since the attack units and anomaly units had the best ultimates in the game, our support and stun units never really got a chance. With this upcoming patch, you now have access to even more buffs through support ults for Harumasa, as well as a ton more days in ults like Ching-Yi's. It's also worth noting that the current meta focuses heavily on anomaly units. In fact, the most common buff in Shiyu defense is anomaly proficiency or some kind of anomaly damage. This still plays extremely well for Harumasa because of that additional ability and building very strong anomaly teams around him. Oh, and don't forget that most of the endgame content for some reason has electric weakness, Battle Tower floor 25 through 30, and it's very common in Shiyu defense. The next thing we can talk about for Harumasa is his Mindscapes in general. Mindscape 1 High Spirit increases his max stack limit of Electro Prison to 14 stacks, and will trigger 2 consecutive Haoto no Ya shots when an Electro Quiver is triggered. Mindscape 2 is a lot more valuable than 1 in my opinion, because when using a chain attack or ultimate, he'll gain 7 stacks of a new buff called Electro Blitz. While you have this buff, your enhanced dash attack damage will increase by 50%. Each slash of the dash attack will just consume 1 stack of Electro Blitz. Mindscape 4 extends the Electro Prison to 20 seconds, and he'll gain 30 decibels per use of his enhanced dash attack. The best part about this is when you use your ultimate, max stacks of Electro Prison will be applied to all enemies. Lastly, Mindscape 6 turns Harumasa into a nuke. When that Haoto no Ya hits a stunned enemy or attribute anomaly affected enemy, 15% of the target's electric resistance will be ignored. Every 12 strikes of this Haoto no Ya will trigger a giant explosion, dealing 1500% of Harumasa's attack as electric damage. So yeah, as long as you're keeping your max Electro Prison stacks, which is very easy once you get to Mindscape 6, you'll be dealing a crap ton of damage, for basically free. There's only one thing left to discuss about Harumasa, and that's what you can do to be ready for his release. Unlike his banner counterpart, aka the chief of Section 6, Hashimi Miyabi, we can fully prepare his disk drives before the patch. Harumasa's best in slot 4-piece is Thunder Metal, but you can also get away with using 4-piece Hormone Punk. These are already available, and you can easily go to Rollin and farm these up. For 2 pieces, you can just use the inverse of this of whatever you choose for your 4-piece. Or if you do want to wait, you can get the new Branch and Blade song to boost his crit damage when it comes out on 1.4. Either way, we will have to wait for his purple and gold mats for his core passives, but you can also get the electric chips for his skills ready for release. Here is a grand total of the mats you will need. And that will be everything you need to know about if you should pull Harumasa in Zenless Zone 0. As a bottom line, in my opinion, since we do get him for free, you should absolutely be pulling for his W engine over Mindscape 1, although both are extremely powerful. He features a very fun, fluid gameplay loop that works well in anomaly and support-based teams, ultimately giving him a lot of good synergy. For now though, I would love to hear from you guys about Harumasa. What do you think of him? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like the video if it helped in any way, and subscribe for more Zenless Zone 0 upcoming, including Harumasa's full guide. You're not going to want to miss that one. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and bye for now.